The year is 210 BC. The Second Punic War has been raging for nearly a decade, and the Italian peninsula is a scarred landscape. For years, one name has struck fear into the heart of the Roman Republic: Hannibal Barca. His string of devastating victories at Trebia, Lake Trasimene, and the legendary Cannae left Rome reeling, seemingly on the brink of collapse. But Rome is a city built on resilience. Slowly, painstakingly, it began to recover, adopting the Fabian strategy of avoiding direct confrontation, wearing down Hannibal's forces through attrition. Hannibal, in turn, found his momentum fading. His army, though still formidable, was isolated deep in enemy territory. His supply lines stretched thin, and his Italian allies growing weary. The war had entered a new, grinding phase. Both sides were desperately seeking an advantage, a decisive blow that could finally tip the scales. It is in this tense atmosphere that our story unfolds, not in a grand, sweeping campaign, but around the small town of Numistro in southern Italy. Here, Hannibal would come face to face with a Roman commander unlike any he had faced before. This was not a rash politician or an overly cautious general. This was Marcus Claudius Marcellus, a hardened veteran of countless campaigns, a 5-time consul, and a man known throughout the Republic by a fearsome moniker, the Sword of Rome. Marcellus was the architect of the brutal siege of Syracuse and was renowned for his aggressive, unrelenting style of warfare. He believed the only way to defeat Hannibal was to meet him head-on, to break the myth of his invincibility and restore Roman pride and morale. While other generals shadowed Hannibal from a distance, Marcellus marched his legions directly towards him, issuing a challenge that Hannibal could not ignore. For Hannibal, the challenge was both a risk and an opportunity. A victory over a commander of Marcellus' stature would shatter Rome's newfound confidence and potentially reignite his campaign. He accepted the battle, but on his own terms, a master of terrain. Hannibal surveyed the landscape around Numistro and quickly identified the key tactical advantage. He positioned his army on a prominent ridge, a line of hills that overlooked the plains where the Romans would have to advance. This gave his forces the crucial high ground. From this perch, his troops could see the entire Roman deployment, and any Roman assault would be a grueling uphill struggle. It was a classic Hannibal setup, designed to negate the Romans' numerical superiority and channel their attack into a killing zone of his choosing, limiting their ability to maneuver their powerful legions. The morning of the battle dawned, and the trumpets of the legions blared. Marcellus, ever the aggressor, ordered the advance. The Roman heavy infantry, the backbone of the Republic's military might, began their slow, disciplined march up the slope. In their tight maniples, shields locked, they were a moving wall of steel and sinew, pushing relentlessly uphill against the steep incline. But Hannibal was ready. As the Romans labored up the hill, the air filled with a deadly rain. Carthaginian slingers, masters of their craft, unleashed a storm of lead and stone projectiles, while light infantry skirmishers hurled javelins down into the dense Roman formations. The barrage was relentless, designed to disrupt the Roman advance, break their cohesion, and inflict casualties. Before the main lines even clashed, the Romans faltered, the uphill climb turning into a bloody, exhausting ordeal. Just as the Roman momentum was slowing, they reached the crest of the hill and slammed into Hannibal's main line. Here, the true test began. Hannibal unleashed his elite troops, the battle-hardened veterans who had followed him from Spain and across the Alps. His African infantry, disciplined and heavily armed, formed an unshakable wall, absorbing the Roman charge. Alongside them fought his fierce Iberian warriors, swordsmen of legendary skill, who met the legionaries in a brutal, close-quarters melee. The line stabilized, holding firm against the powerful Roman push. But Marcellus was not Quintus Fabius. He wasn't one to back down. Seeing his first wave struggle, he committed his reserves, throwing fresh legions into the fray. The battle devolved into a horrific, grinding stalemate. It was no longer a battle of grand tactics, but of pure, bloody-minded endurance. For hours, under the hot Italian sun, Roman and Carthaginian fought and died on that narrow ridge, neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. The clash of swords, the splintering of shields, and the cries of the wounded echoed across the valley. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the corpse-strewn battlefield, it became clear that there would be no breakthrough. Both armies were battered and exhausted, having fought each other to a standstill. With the coming of darkness, the fighting subsided, and under a mutual, unspoken agreement, the two armies disengaged and withdrew to their respective camps to tend to their wounded and count their dead. Tactically, the result was ambiguous. Hannibal's forces held the field of battle at the end of the day, a traditional marker of victory in ancient warfare. He had successfully repelled the Roman assault. Yet, he had failed in his primary objective. He had not destroyed Marcellus's army. The sword of Rome remained sharp, his legions battered but intact, ready to fight another day. The Battle of Numistro would never be remembered on the same scale as Cannae or Zen. There were no brilliant flanking maneuvers, no wholesale annihilation of an entire army, but its significance was profound. It marked a crucial psychological turning point in the war. For the first time, a Roman army, led by a Roman general, had confronted Hannibal's main force in a pitched battle, fought him to a draw, and lived to tell the tale. The aura of Hannibal's invincibility was finally broken. Marcellus had proven that Hannibal could be met on equal terms. Rome now had a commander who was not afraid, who could stand firm and trade blows with the master of Carthage. The war was far from over, but the tide was beginning to turn. The long road to victory had begun, right here, on the bloody hills of Numistro. Thanks for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe for more stories from the ancient world.